you. All of you in the crowd, I said, hey you. We will now have some fun, I said, hey you. Let's begin with the song, no excuse to not be dancing, hey you. It is soon time to start, I said, hey you. We will open your mind to make sure we bring in all different views, so we bring in all perspectives. It's always fun with more diversity. It's fun to have all this diversity. It has everything for business value to grow. Diversometer is the way to go. Diversity.
Thank you. Are we warmed up? Yes. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for being here in our focus session. We're here today to present to you the Diversometer, but before we go ahead, you can see a QR code on your screen. I want all of you to scan the QR code and answer the questions, but I would also like to tell you that the participation is anonymous and the data will not be stored. It's just for us to demo here today. So go ahead, and the QR code will be on the screen in every slide, so you will not miss that out. And let's begin. Yes. But to keep it fun and interesting today, we are going to introduce ourselves by answering the questions that we just asked you. So I will start. My name is Adithi. I am a millennial, and I identify as a woman. I have lived in 3 countries, and I love reading and literature, and my favorite magical creature is the basilisk because I'm a Harry Potter nerd. What about you, Ankit?
My name is Ankit, and I identify myself as a male, and my favorite creature is dragon. What about you?
My name is Fillitsa. I'm also a millennial. I have lived in 2 countries and speak 3 languages, and my favorite magical creature is the mermaid. Which one is your favorite, Sofia?
Yeah, that's a good question, Fillitsa. My favorite magical creature is, of course, the unicorn, and I hope I have some others with me today as well. So, my name is Sofia. I'm also a millennial, and I identify as female as well. So, how about you?
Hi, my name is Christina. I'm also a millennial. I identify as a female. For hobby, I enjoy horseback riding. And my magical creature, I'm also a Harry Potter fan, but I actually choose the hippogriff.
Let's start. Let's take it from the beginning, how it all started. So, it started at Scania's hackathon. I think most of you know what a hackathon is. And Scania has its own. It happens every year, and it's 2 days. So we participated there, and our idea was to create a way to measure and visualize diversity. And the reason we wanted to do that was because, of course, we wanted to increase transparency and awareness regarding diversity, but we also wanted to challenge our organization about how diverse we truly are. So we gathered all together, as you can see, and we had more people with us. We had Erika, which is there, together with her daughter today, Mai. And we had quite many Scrum Masters in our group, so we created directly a brainstorming wall with lots of drawings and post-its, and yeah, it was quite old-fashioned, but really loved it. Do we have any Scrum Masters here today?
Yeah, raise your hands.
Raise your
Scrum
hands.
Master.
Not so many, actually.
There also.
Yeah, and we also made a plan because we only had 2 days to implement a minimum valuable product of our idea. So we made a plan for 2 days, a 2-day sprint, and we began. So the first day we focused mostly on brainstorming and setting up the scope of our MVP. And we also tried to create an outline to decide which data we should collect from our users. We also spent a lot of time on discussing which data we were allowed to collect, because some data were out of limits, like religion.
Sexual orientation.
Exactly,
Yeah, ethnicity.
yeah. So we had to be careful, and we also got help from the other participants of the hackathon. We asked for their feedback, and they gave us a lot of good inputs regarding which categories we should focus on when calculating diversity. Yes, and this step was very crucial, because the quality of the data that we would receive would define the quality of the output that we would give to our users. So it was very, very important. But apart from that, we also created a logo. It's not shown in this slide, but it's shown in every other slide. It's a rainbow circle with a flag in front of it, Diversometer flag. And we thought that it was fun, it was something positive and colorful. And last but not least, we focused on the technical part, how we would implement this app. And since we don't have many competencies as the front-end developers, we needed some help. And we had some professionals there from the Microsoft Power Platforms, which were there to help participants. So we got help from them and decided to use Power Apps for creating the app, SharePoint for handling the data, and then Power BI for visualizing them. And that was pretty much the first day.
Yeah, and just a reminder to the new people in the room as well. We have a QR code. Please scan it and participate. We'd be really happy if you did.
It's up there.
So what happened on the second day? On the second day, we focused on finding out a good calculation model for how to present the results. But we also created a pitch video for the competition. And the song was created, Diversity. We had a lot of fun, but did not win any prizes.
But we had a lot
Anyway,
of fun.
we managed to implement our MVP scope and had our first run of the Diversometer. We hacked our way into the live broadcast for the event and got them to share our QR code. And it felt fantastic until we realized the data was lost. Not joking, none registered entry point. After some fixes, we did get another round of sharing the QR code. And a few answers were registered now. Yay, success. We had already talked about the future state in our brainstorming phase and had a clear picture of where to go after these 2 days.
So, to get into the right mindset of what we think diversity could be, we want to raise awareness, and what it's going to be is we're going to play a game with you guys now. And for that, we will ask you all to stand up.
Yeah, we know you can do it. So
Yeah,
please
we know
stand up.
it's a small space, but yeah, you can sit down also if there's a
it's
reason.
okay. Yeah, if you for some reason can't stand, you can raise your hand instead.
Yeah. So how this is going to work is that we will ask you a question or tell a statement, and if the answer to the question is yes, or the statement is for your perspective known to be true, this is something you know, then you remain standing. If it is no, or you don't know the fact, you will sit down, and you will remain sitting, even if another statement is something you know.
If you sit down, you lose.
Yeah, so let's see if we can get you all.
Yeah, that's right, Fillitsa.
Let's see if we can get you all to sit down.
Yeah.
So who or what will we be talking about now?
Yeah, what will we be
What could
talking
it be?
about?
I mean, we're talking
Yeah.
about diversity here and different perspectives.
I don't know.
We're actually going to talk about Walt Disney. So the first question.
Yes. When you think about Walt Disney, do you think about the Disney characters? No. If you don't, sit down. If you do, remain standing.
He started up the dream of building Disneyland with his own money, forming a new occupation, called the Imagineers.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
Everyone is aware about the Imagineers, yeah? That's good.
We have an aware group.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go with this one then.
Yeah, then we take the another one. Yeah, did you know that Walt Disney produced films for the military during World War II? If you knew, stand. Otherwise, sit down.
There's
have
a lot
some
of people.
strong
Yeah, we
players.
still.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have some contestants here.
True.
Okay, let's see if we can get you seated down soon then.
Yeah, the game is on.
Behind the scenes, he was actually a really insecure and shy guy, and he was not at all an encouraging leader.
Ooh.
Do we have someone? Yeah, we have.
We have a few.
We
still.
have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then let's try this one. Did you know that Walt Disney had 2 daughters?
Okay. We have 2 winners.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's see if we can get you seated or not. Then, one of them is adopted. Are you sitting now? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So what does this tell us? There is a lot about people in general and about who you are as a person. And there are those things that we can see and that we know and that we are biased to think about when we see them. There are a lot of things. But there are also the things that we don't see, we don't know. And that's what we want to bring up about awareness about diversity, especially with the Diversometer.
Yeah, many different levels, and equally important to know about them all.
So this takes us further into why do we need this? We need it because it's important, but also there is a considerable amount of activity in the diversity and inclusion world, especially now with the tight economic situation. Companies like Twitter has reduced their D&I consultants from 30 to 2.
Really troubling.
That's where the cutbacks are being made first. So we have to keep on fighting for it as employees in a big organization to demand that we work and make it a more inclusive workspace, using the diversity as a tool. But it's also important that these initiatives, they need to be implemented as part of the wide strategy of diversity and inclusion into organizations. So the data can be used from the grassroots level, and evidence-based approach can be used with the Diversometer. So if you're new in the room, scan the QR code and participate in our measurements, and we will show you that later.
Yeah, we have some newcomers, so
Yes.
please use the QR code.
Yes. So now if we focus on the 2 first points of this slide, a question that often baffles everyone is, how do we measure diversity? How can we measure it? It's really difficult, and it truly is. But what we wanted to do was to try and attack this question and try to create a measurable quantity that would help us identify the diversity of a team, of a department, or a whole organization in different areas and as a total. And for example, how diverse is a group regarding age distribution, or regarding skills, or regarding years of experience. And the answers, the numbers that we get for these questions are very powerful, because they help us identify which areas we need to improve, and they help us to create a plan on how we will increase the diversity in these areas, and subsequently the diversity of the group in total. So for example, we are a group of millennials, so if we wanted to increase our age diversity, we should get into a person or some people from other generations, like boomers or Gen Z. Then we get their perspectives and their skills. Or if a group consists of individuals that have a working experience of less than 5 years, each person, then maybe it's time to get in someone that has more seniority, that has experience of more than 5 years and get more skills, and vice versa. So we can see how powerful these data are and how they can help an organization.
Yes, another key area that we want to target is, of course, to create transparency. It's really, really key in these areas. Because we always believe that we are doing what we can, that we're doing enough, but it's not enough. We need to do more. So we need to kind of identify the scope that we can actually do something about, and that we can move further with the continuous improvement as much as we can. And also by making every colleague aware, about diversity and how we can work with it, we can make a more inclusive work environment together, which is really, really important to have. And by Diversometer, we wanted to create a tool to actually keep track of this in a good way. So that's what we wanted to do.
Last but not least, it also increases business value, because everything contributes to creating business value when it comes to different opinions, discussions. And we can consider a real-life example of Nokia. Nokia was a leading player in the telecom industry, but when the smartphone came, they did not jump on the train. They did not go on innovative side. Apple and Google ran up. And Nokia's management team were mostly from the industrial generation. They were all old males, missing out on a lot of new technologies coming in. So they actually failed to identify and respond to the needs of the markets because they were not diverse in their management team.
And how did they solve that?
Did they, though?
Good question. Did they?
No, but they were getting weaker. They had to do personal layoffs. The profits were not going the way they wanted. So they responded with an organizational change because they had to do something. And that's what they could do, to find and bring a better, more diverse workplace. But it's always a challenge. But by including a diverse set of perspectives, the knowledge and the opinions of everyone, including all of the employees in it, there is a possibility to understand the markets and get closer to all of the different customers that you might have, and release the potential of the employees, of the entire employee. So to become a more attractive employer, to have a business value in the future, always to be continuous. So this is important because the world is changing constantly, and so is everyone's companies. So we have to have a tool, the Diversometer, to get there, is what we're saying. If you're new into the room, we have a QR code. Scan it and participate.
So let's now get behind the app. We'll talk about some technical stuff. It's not going to be boring, I promise. We'll try to figure out how the app works. And we'll start by talking about the data collection. Of course, it was very important for us in our brainstorming phase to figure out what are the data points that we're going to collect. In most organizations, employee databases usually have information on age or gender, and these things are what we always talk about when we say diversity. We always talk about nationality, we talk about age. So of course, these parameters were on the cards for us, but we also realize that this is not it. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Diversity usually comes from more than what meets the eye. There's so much more that contributes to an individual's experiences, to their perspectives. It includes educational background, socioeconomic background, your family situation, neurodivergence, and so much more. So it was important that we capture all of these points. But there is something called as special category data. which basically depends on the country you're working in or the organization that you're working for. There are some rules which state that some of this data could be sensitive and maybe not safe to collect. So keeping that in mind, we disregarded some of these parameters, such as political views, religion, sexual orientation, information about disabilities. But we're not saying that this does not contribute to the diversity of a group. Of course it does. But it was important for us to strike a balance between what truly contributes to the diversity, but also follow the rules and regulations. Once we had, sorry,
we don't want to go to jail.
So once we had all of these data points, we created a reference group. This group had awesome people from all over our organization who volunteered to act as testers for our app. Like we said before, none of us come from an app development background. We know that this is phase 1, it's an MVP. The app needs to be developed, it needs to be advanced. But the reference group that we had, they were nice to us. They tested our app multiple times and they answered all of the questions. So all the data parameters that we had decided that we need to be in this app were introduced to them as survey questions, which they answered, and then they came back to us with the most valuable feedback. From the feedback and moving on from there, we decided that we need to use inclusive language in the questions that we ask. We don't want to let someone feel excluded when they're answering our questions. We also decided to add an other option so that we make sure that we do not leave out on any of the other possible answers for our questions. We also decided to have a prefer not to say option because we don't want to put our users in an uncomfortable position. You want to take it forward, Ankit?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing about the questions.
Yes.
Like this is, like Adithi is saying, MVP. So there could be other questions as well, or they could be written in another way. So this is just a start. We're trying this out with the reference group to kind of find a good path forward, so to say.
So one of our main ambition was to calculate a diversity index. And how do we do that? So we made use of Simpson's index, and that index takes into account the number of species present as well as the relative abundance in that species. It varies from 0 to 1, 0 being no diversity and 1 being the most diverse. Consider an example of 2 groups. Group 1, which has like 5 same people and 5 different people, but group 2 have all of them are different from each other. So this index takes into consideration the richness of diversity which is in the group 2, because everyone in that group is different and diversity is more in that group. Yeah.
I also wanted to add that just to make it a little simpler, we all know probability. So the way the Simpsons index works is that it calculates the probability that if I pick any 2 of you at random here, you will be completely different from each other. Which is why when we say that the diversity index is 0, we mean that the 2 people are exactly the same and there is no diversity. But when the diversity index is 1, or the probability that the 2 of you are completely different is 1, then it means infinite diversity. And we also don't know yet how much diversity index is good enough. So we don't know, it could be 0.7, 0.8, we don't know what is good enough. But the closer you are to 1, the more diverse the group is. And we will move forward from there to find out what is good enough.
So coming to visualization, once we have all the data and calculation set up, our next goal was to visualize the results. Why should we visualize? Why couldn't we just talk about the percentage distribution of gender or age? Well, firstly, because it is boring to hear the numbers, and secondly, and most importantly, a picture speaks 1,000 words. We have to visualize our diversity data so that we can identify areas of improvement, spot interesting trends that challenge stereotypes and increase business value.
And we're going to do just that. So based on the questions that you answered, we will now look at how diverse our group here is. But before that, this is how our app actually looks. We created this with Scania tools, so we had authentication issues to use this app here with all of you today, which is why we tried a simulation with Google Forms, but rest assured that the solution that comes out from it is exactly the same. And I think we have to refresh the data, Christina. I will just move this side. Right there. There we go. Now can we make it full screen? Oh. Yes, so we will start by seeing how colorful our map is. Although this is Women in Tech Sweden, we are here from all over the world. And it's so beautiful that you all are making our rainbow dream come true. And we can also see the age. We were really looking forward, because we are a bunch of millennials, like we said before. So we were really looking forward to see that would be different here. But it's not really.
Yeah, kind of similar.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, we have a gender wheel as well, and no surprises there. This is Women in Tech, after all. But a lot of women, but we also have some representation from the male and the other gender groups, the non-binary groups. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. And then we have some interesting hobbies. A lot of us want to do outdoor activities, so it's quite a beautiful day to be stuck inside then. We also have a lot of representation from music and entertainment, so a lot of creative people here.
But this is a surprise. A lot of us works within the information science and technology.
Oh,
How could
that be?
Yeah. Okay.
But we also have some engineering and manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
One
And
from sales.
yes.
Can you help us sell the application?
Well, there you go. Of course.
In-house.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Already part of the team. That's great.
And we have many werewolves.
Yes.
Yeah.
This
That's
is a
surprising.
surprise,
Yeah.
guys.
Yes. But
Yeah, I thought
What
that
happened to the
unicorn was there.
unicorns?
yes, think about it, that a bunch of women here, we would expect that our favorite magical creature would be a unicorn or a mermaid. But here we are challenging stereotypes, and we're saying that we like werewolves.
Yeah, fierce werewolves.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
Great.
that is why we need to visualize this, because we don't come across these things, and we're usually put in a box. When someone looks at us or someone listens to us, they put us in a box, and they don't know that we like werewolves. But most importantly, since we're talking about numbers here, we see the diversity index, and it's a beautiful 0.61, which I think is good enough. At least, I don't know, it's closer to 1 than to 0,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
that
it's
is
closer
good.
to 1 than to 0.
Yes,
Yeah.
so we have a good number there, and the aim of our app is to just move forward and make this number bigger. Can we go back?
Yeah, great. Didn't expect the werewolves.
Yes,
No?
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, so what is the next step then for Diversometer? And what are we going to do? Well, to actually improve our calculation model that we have, and also the visualizations that you just saw, we need more data. Of course, we need more data. Because otherwise it will be harder to get those kind of insights that we need in order to improve this work. And as Adithi said, we are working with a reference group in our organization, but now also with you guys, which is great. So thanks for your contribution. It has been really good. Yeah, and in the future, we would like Diversometer to give those kind of insights that can give also suggestions of what you should do to increase the diversity in your team that you're working in, or organization overall. We also want to make the app more user-friendly and more stable, of course. So that will be future steps. Yeah, and once it's ready, we want to spread it to all teams in our organization to see what will happen and how does it actually look like. So yeah, really interesting to see where that will lead us. Yeah, so that would be great to get some suggestions on how to make the workplace more inclusive and diverse for the future. Great. Of course, the unicorn. Best magical creature. I wonder who created this presentation. Yes, but of course, we would like feedback from you guys, because you have been listening to this focus session. So if you have any question, please ask us.
We have one already.
Yeah, great.
Maybe we should repeat it.
Hi, thank you for the introduction. I think it's great. I can feel the culture in Scania is very good looking at your team interaction and everything.
Thank you.
But I think my question, my name is Ivy and I've been working in diversity inclusion for 8 years in Asia and now in Stockholm. I think my question is great to see a lot of diversity, from your app, like you have different, parameters. But then my next question is, so what? How about inclusion? How do you measure inclusion? How do you know that people feel included, or there's equity between at least men and women, or like people who are from outside Europe, people with disability? How do you know that they feel belong to the company or organization? Because I feel like, okay, diversity, yes, it's good to have diversity. In Sweden, we have diversity, but I don't think that we have a lot of inclusivity here in Sweden. So that's my question.
Yeah, for those of you that didn't hear, the question is that okay with diversity, but what are we doing with inclusion? How do we make sure that everyone feels included?
Yeah, and thanks for the question. It was a really good question. And I think, as we have been talking about, we need to set some kind of baseline, like what is good enough to start with, and what kind of questions do we need to ask to get the right answers, to actually, so we're actually able to do those kind of changes that we need to do in order to enhance this. So I don't think we have
like raising the awareness about the diversity helps to create inclusion more natural and to be part of the mindset of all teams. So that's how we want to achieve it.
Yeah, and like we said, this is phase 1. In future, once we have our diversity part up and running, we want to ask the right questions so that we get feedback on how each and every employee is feeling. Are they feeling psychologically safe in their group? Are they feeling included? And from then on, then we will maybe create more parameters in this app where the management team or a team in general can look up how they can make their employees more included in their teams. So yes, we're looking at inclusivity, and that will definitely be part 2 of this app.
Yeah, and during our discussions, we also discussed things like what if we could also map in business capabilities needed in a team and how they map with the actual temperature of the team when it comes to diversity and inclusion and what they perform and what is requested of that specific team.
Yeah, we could learn a lot. And this is the first step. Thanks for the question. Any more questions in the room?
We have about 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is more technical on the Diversometer. So what's the weight you put on every category or every difference between each category? How do you measure that to get to that 0.6 that you have in there?
Like we explained, we're making use of Simpson's index, and you asked the good question about how do you assign weights to each of these categories, and that is impossible to do because we can never say that gender has more weightage than education
Or a magical creature.
Or a magical
creature.
So we can never put weights on any of this. The Simpsons index, however, is what we usually use to measure biodiversity in like a forest, to measure how many different kinds of animals are there in the forest. But we don't just see how many different kinds of animals are there, we also see that in a group, what is the abundance of each of these species. So we want more representation for each of the different kind of categories that we have. And that is how the Simpson index is probably one of the best calculative methods that is there to make sure that not only do we look at what are the different types of animals, for example, but we also see that we have equal representation. We have equal number of tigers, we have equal number of lions, and we have equal number of elephants.
So we don't have here the equation, but if you Google Simpsons index, not only Simpsons, you will get the
Good point. Good point.
you will get the numbers that they use.
Yeah, we looked at a few different calculation models, but we ended up with this one fitting our needs the best. Any last questions? We will go down to the Scania booth, and if you have questions or want to discuss diversity or the app or anything else, meet us there. And thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.